also worked at startup, right? And
Correct.
you have spent large part of your journey as well as research labs, right? Now, in a way, can we say that a startup and research are slightly contradictory because a startup by very nature is shipping out very, very fast,
Hmm.
right? Rather aiming for perfection in a startup, right? It's completely contradictory, right?
Yeah.
The idea is good enough is often the greatest thing that can be done, right? Research by its very notion requires one to work very systematically, thoroughly before they know that yes, this is indeed an answer, right? So, how do you balance research and an early stage startup?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, and I have like a very biased take on it. Is because I was lucky enough to work at the startups that were, so they were not super early in the sense. So, and so if you're working in a startup, you can surely like ship V0 very quickly, right? And that's what the kind of, the plan is, and you want to get your product out, right? But then you also have to continuously improve, continuously iterate, right? And when it comes to like improving this product, and this is what I've realized, at least at least or in the companies that I've worked at, is that when you are working in this sort of real world setting on real data, very rarely this off the shelf research approaches, or like you can read a paper and say, oh, okay, maybe I can try to implement this. It's not always going to work, right? And also, like, when I was working in startups, it was a different juncture or different time in this, like, the AI development, right? So as I was saying, like, we don't have tools like LLMs and things like that, right? So we were working with, in one of the startups, we were working with Indian languages, and there was like a code mixing of languages that you would still, try to write something in, in Roman alphabet, but it's still, but the content is in some regional language, right? So that's, and we didn't have, any research papers for that. So that means that you have to take a step back and like put on your kind of research hat and try to solve these problems. And I've been very lucky in the companies that startups that I've worked at, that we were able to continuously publish papers. And even after I left,